Joining me now is Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association and PM Council member. Flavio, you've been very vocal about this in the past, and again, with that ad that happened back in the fall, again, late summer, maybe early fall, with the province of Ontario when negotiations broke down. What's your reaction to hearing the Prime Minister say today that we are likely not going to have any sectoral relief before the entire renegotiation of CUSMA?
Well, look, I think he's just describing reality at this point. We spent a lot of time talking with him and his team and the negotiating team, both here and everybody that's going back and forth to Washington. And then we had occasion to be in Washington 2 weeks ago speaking at the USMCA hearings and also working with commerce and trade. And what the Prime Minister is saying today is what we're hearing echoed between the two capitals. Important for people in my industry to know that means you've got to hunker down a little longer. We've had some bad news this year, plant closures or pauses in Brampton and in Ingersoll. But I think we all have been imploring the Prime Minister to not just make a quick deal for expediency. So some of that is on us being responsible to not push for that publicly. You know, the president doesn't have to come to the table. So if you have to beg him to the table and make some concessions to get him there, you know, whether it's in automotive or in other parts of the Canadian economy, you know, I've been very clear to the Prime Minister and his team. You know, we're strong enough, we're resilient enough right now. Don't sacrifice something we don't have to.
But are you encouraged, you know, with the list that came out yesterday from the U.S. trade representatives? So, you know, supply management, sure, that's going to be, you know, it's not necessarily your industry, and we'll see if the government is willing to give on that at all, at least for right now. But that, you know, the alcohol bans, we've talked about the, you know, the online when it comes to news, some of the legislation involved in that. It doesn't look like the U.S. is ready to walk away with this, but these are their first priorities. Is that encouraging to you?
Yes, the idea that they would discuss publicly the things that they would like to see from their partners is a development from the earlier part of this year, which was threaten economic security and national identity. And when we were down in Washington at the hearings earlier this month, we pointed out, using their numbers, that in automotive, the U.S. content in Canadian-made vehicles has gone up from 38 to 50% since they signed the USMCA. And we buy $29 billion worth of American auto parts here. So if you continue to take aim at Canadian assembly here, you're going to indirectly hit all those American auto parts firms and about 100,000 employees, 150,000 employees in your own country. They're engaging, especially on the USMCA, which is the only legislated part of this. You know, like there's the national security tariff threats and there's the USMCA. They're in two different paths. They're being very professional on USMCA. I think all of us are cautiously optimistic that there are some improvements, some of them to our mutual benefit, available in this review and renegotiation. But certainly, as the USTR ambassador said yesterday, American exports are up 56% to Canada and Mexico since 2020. They're not going to walk away from that unless they're blowing, you know, their whole thing up.
Right.
Trade with Canada aside.
And for you too, you know, you've been part of these, you know, these conversations. You've been part of the hearings that happened in the U.S. in the lead up to this. Do you believe, I guess I'll put it to you, you know, very bluntly, do you believe the message is getting through to Donald Trump?
I think the cake is baking in the U.S. You know, he's set a bunch of things in motion over the course of the year. A lot of us have been advising the Prime Minister and the team around him that some of those things are really going to start hurting the U.S. economy, and we're starting to see leading macroeconomic indicators there, which leads me to believe that some of the conversations now and some of the public statements that are more practical are them being a little bit more based in reality. Look, they set fires with everybody, from China to Venezuela to Russia to Europe and domestically. They're going to have to scale back from some of those. If you scale back from the fight with Canada, you scale back to a place where Americans are prosperous, where American interests and values are respected and shared and upheld. And I think for the Prime Minister would prove out, his move over the last, especially over the last 3 to 6 months, is to say, okay, what can we do ourselves to be more economically resilient? New trading partners, but major investments locally to be able to ride this out. And we're way far away from declaring a victory, and we may never get that victory. But we certainly have made some progress as a resilient economy and a resilient nation from where we were in January.
Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. Thanks for your time today, sir. Appreciate this.
Thank you for having me.